All right, so everyone get ready, because today we are going deep. We're talking Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day.
You know, hearts and flowers and romance.
Hmm.
But what most people don't realize is that this holiday that we associate so much with romantic love actually has its roots in some really, really wild, ancient Roman fertility rituals.
It is amazing how traditions can transform over time and how something that started out as a pretty, a very specific ritual can turn into something completely different.
And today we're really going to uncover that clash of cultures and beliefs, from paganism to Christianity, to really understand how we got to the Valentine's Day we know and maybe love today. So first, let's set the stage. We're talking about ancient Rome.
Ancient Rome?
They were really, really into nature. Agricultural cycles, right?
Absolutely. The Romans were deeply connected to the land, to the cycles of nature.
Yeah.
And they really believed that their well-being was tied to the success of their harvests.
Exactly. So it's February.
February.
And they're gearing up for this massive festival. It's called Lupercalia.
Lupercalia, the big one.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a party. It was a seriously important event for them. They thought it was essential for ensuring a good harvest, purification, and also welcoming the coming of spring, which you can imagine after a long winter they were very much ready for.
I mean, they were ready to party.
Yeah.
So where did this all go down? What was the venue?
So not exactly your typical Valentine's Day dinner setting.
Right. No candlelight?
No, we're talking about some seriously symbolic locations.
Okay.
You've got the Lupercal Cave.
The Lupercal Cave.
Which, if you know your Roman mythology, is where Romulus and Remus, the founders of Rome, were said to have been raised by a she-wolf.
So this is a very important place.
Super important, yeah. You've also got the Palatine Hill, which was one of the 7 hells of Rome, a place of power.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, the Roman Forum, the heart of Roman public life.
So very important. The setting is really something.
It is.
But so is the guest list, right?
Yeah.
Because we got to talk about the stars of the show, the Luperci.
The Luperci, now these guys were a special priesthood dedicated to a god named Lupercus.
Okay, Lupercus.
Lupercus, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were also known as the Wolf Brothers.
The Wolf Brothers, okay.
Yeah.
So how,
So how were they organized?
Yeah, how's this all set up?
Well, they were split into 2 main groups.
Okay.
The Quintiliani and the Fabiani.
All right, the Quintiliani and the Fabiani.
Exactly. And each group had their own specific traditions.
Oh, interesting.
And then later on, Julius Caesar, always a fan of getting in on the action, decided to add a 3rd group, the Giuliani.
You know, I think maybe he was just trying to, boost his own popularity a little bit.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be associated with a festival as popular as Lupercalia?
But now, we can't just talk about the players. We got to talk about, what actually went down.
Let's get into the rituals.
Those rituals, yeah.
And they were a sight to behold. Let's just say some of them might raise a few eyebrows today.
I think maybe more than a few eyebrows.
Yeah. Imagine this. We're talking animal sacrifice.
Okay.
Blood smearing.
Blood smearing.
And ritual whipping.
All right, hold on a second. We're talking about Valentine's Day.
I know, right?
And you're talking about animal sacrifices and whipping.
It was a different time.
It doesn't sound very romantic.
No, not exactly chocolates and roses.
Okay, but paint us a picture. Really, what was happening?
Okay, so picture this. The Lupercal Cave, the heart of it all.
Okay.
You have the priests, the Luperci, and they're sacrificing goats and dogs.
Goats and dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this whole ritual is overseen by the Flamindialis, the high priest of Jupiter.
Okay.
And get this, the Vestal Virgins, the priestesses of Vesta, they were there too, witnessing the whole thing.
Wow, so this was a big deal.
A very big deal.
Okay, but you mentioned blood smearing. What was going on with that?
So after the sacrifice, the Luperci would take the blood of the animals and they would smear it on their foreheads. It was a symbolic act, kind of like cleansing, a purification ritual.
Wow.
And then, get this, they would wipe it off with wool dipped in milk.
So it's a very intense form of purification.
Very intense, very symbolic.
Okay, but there's one detail that's really throwing me off.
What's that?
You said there was laughter involved?
Oh, yeah.
Laughter?
Amidst all the blood and sacrifice,
the
Luperci were supposed to laugh.
Now, why is that?
Well, it seems strange to us, right?
Yeah.
But to them, The laughter had a very specific meaning. It symbolized the joy and relief that came after a successful childbirth. Remember, this whole festival was about fertility, about ensuring the continuation of life.
So they were laughing in the face of, like, well, death.
I guess you could say that. It's a very different way of looking at life and death, isn't it?
It really is. Okay, but I think we have to address the elephant in the room.
The whipping.
The whipping, yes.
The main event.
Yeah. What was going on with that?
So after the sacrifice and the blood smearing, the Luperci would take off running.
Running?
Yeah, they would run around the Palatine Hill.
Okay.
And they'd be carrying these strips of goat hide called februa.
Febru, okay.
And they'd use those strips to whip anyone they came across.
Anyone?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Roman women would actually line up willingly.
Wait, what?
To be whipped. They believed that being struck by the februa.
Really?
Yeah, they thought it would make them fertile.
Wow.
And help them have an easier childbirth.
I mean, talk about commitment.
Commitment to the cause.
To the cause, right.
Yeah.
Wow.
It might seem crazy to us now, but to them, it was a blessing, a way to connect with the gods.
Okay. I mean, that's just one example of how, this festival was just really wild.
Pretty wild, yeah.
It just shows how important fertility was to them.
It was everything. It was their future, the continuation of their society.
Yeah. All right, so we've got blood sacrifice, we've got whipping, we've got laughter.
Laughter.
This Lupercalia is really, really something.
It is.
But the question is, how in the world do we get from that to the Valentine's Day we know today?
That's where the story takes an interesting turn. And to understand that, we need to talk about a guy named Saint Valentine.
Saint Valentine.
A 3rd century Roman priest. He's the bridge between the pagan world and the rise of Christianity.
So we're going from Lupercalia and all this wild stuff to a saint.
To a saint? How did that happen?
Well, that's a story for our next segment.
Okay, so we're going to leave everybody in suspense.
A little cliffhanger.
Yeah, we're going to have to come back for part 2 to hear about Saint Valentine.
We'll unravel the mystery.
All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. So, we left off with this big question. How do we get from Lupercalia, this wild Roman festival, to a saint?
Yeah, Saint Valentine. It's a bit of a head-scratcher.
It really is. And to fully grasp it, we have to delve into the mists of history and explore who Saint Valentine actually was.
Okay, so was Saint Valentine a real person or more like a legendary figure?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, historians are still debating it. It's tricky because there are a few different Saint Valentines mentioned in early Christian writings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so trying to pinpoint which one inspired the holiday is like trying to herd cats. It's tough.
Wow, so it's a real historical mystery then.
Oh.
But what about that story we always hear about Saint Valentine performing secret marriages?
Ah, yes. Tale of forbidden love. It's the most famous legend attached to Saint Valentine. He was supposedly a Roman priest who defied the emperor's orders by secretly marrying soldiers who were banned from getting itched.
Okay, so defying the emperor himself. Why would the emperor forbid soldiers from marrying?
Well, it's thought that Emperor Claudius II Gothicus, he believed that single soldiers were more dedicated and fearless warriors.
So he thought love would make them soft.
Pretty much. No wives, no kids to worry about, just pure focus on battle.
That's kind of harsh.
It was a strategic move, but definitely tough on those love-struck soldiers.
And so Saint Valentine stepped in, kind of like a champion for love.
You could say that. He was a man of faith, believed in love and marriage, saw them as sacred.
And he wasn't afraid to stand up for what he believed in, even if it meant going up against the emperor.
Exactly. Valentine was a rebel with a cause, continuing those secret weddings, even though it put his own life at risk.
Wow, it sounds like a real-life drama.
It does, doesn't it? A story of courage, love, and defiance. Unfortunately, like many rebels, he was eventually caught.
Oh no, what happened to him?
The emperor sentenced him to death.
Wow, what a story.
But there's more. While in prison, it's said that Valentine befriended his jailer's daughter who was blind.
No way. What happened next?
Through his kindness and faith, the legend says he miraculously restored her sight.
So he was a healer too?
It's a powerful testament to his character and compassion, isn't it?
He really is.
The story goes that on the eve of his execution, Valentine sent a farewell message to the jailer's daughter, signing it, "Your Valentine."
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
That simple act, that message, has resonated through the centuries, becoming a symbol of enduring love in the face of adversity.
So even though he was executed, Valentine's story lived on, inspiring people with its message of love and sacrifice.
Exactly. And it really highlights the power of storytelling, how a simple narrative can capture our imaginations and transmit these values across generations.
Okay, so we've got ancient Roman fertility rites and this incredible story of a Christian priest, both connected to February 14th. But how do they combine into the Valentine's Day we know?
Well, that's where we dive into the fascinating interplay of paganism and Christianity, the rise of the Christian church, and how they kind of reshaped the Roman world.
Okay, so the church comes into the picture. What do?
Well, as Christianity spread, the church faced a challenge: how to convert people deeply rooted in their pagan traditions.
Right. You can't just erase centuries of culture overnight.
Exactly. So they got strategic. Instead of outright banning those pagan practices, they decided to absorb and transform them. It's like a cultural makeover.
So they made those old traditions more Christian-friendly.
That's a great way to put it. This strategy was really effective in helping Christianity spread its influence.
Smart move. So how did this makeover affect Lupercalia and Saint Valentine?
Well, it's believed that sometime in the 5th century, Pope Gelasius declared February 14th Saint Valentine's Day.
So they put a Christian holiday right on top of the old pagan one. Clever.
Exactly. A strategic move, to say the least. Over time, that focus shifted away from the wilder aspects of Lupercalia towards the more romantic and spiritual side of Saint Valentine.
So less whipping, more love letters.
Exactly. That transition was helped along by the rise of chivalry and courtly love in the Middle Ages. Saint Valentine, the guy who stood up to an emperor for love, became the perfect symbol of romantic ideals.
It's amazing how these historical forces all came together to shape how we celebrate Valentine's Day.
It really highlights how traditions are constantly changing, evolving, reinterpreting themselves over time.
And this evolution continues today as Valentine's Day is celebrated globally, with each culture adding its own unique flavor. So Valentine's Day is this rich tapestry woven from ancient Roman rituals, Christian stories, medieval romance, and even modern commercialism. It's a fascinating reflection of how human culture constantly evolves.
That's beautifully put. It reminds us that traditions aren't static. They're always adapting and reflecting the changing world.
So who knows what Valentine's Day will look like a century from now? Will it be all about chocolates and roses, or will it transform into something completely different?
Now, that's a question for future historians. But I have a feeling love, in all its diverse forms, will always find a way to be celebrated.
Speaking of change, we can't ignore the elephant in the room: commercialism.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day has become a huge industry.
Ah, yes, the commodification of love. It's a fascinating phenomenon.
How do we go from heartfelt notes to this multi-billion-dollar industry focused on buying the perfect gift?
It's a complex evolution. Some argue that Valentine's Day has lost its true meaning and become more about keeping up appearances than about genuine connection.
I can see that. There's so much pressure to find the perfect gift, plan that over-the-top romantic gesture. It's like we're performing rather than truly connecting.
I agree. And social media only intensifies that pressure. It's like everyone's competing for the most romantic display.
Yeah, exactly. And when you're focused on that, it's easy to feel inadequate or disappointed if your Valentine's Day doesn't live up to the hype.
You hit the nail on the head. Love isn't a competition. It's about those unique and personal connections you forge with each other.
So how do we navigate Valentine's Day in a way that feels authentic and meaningful without getting lost in the commercial frenzy?
I think it starts with a shift in focus. Instead of getting caught up in the material stuff, we need to remember what truly matters: love, appreciation, and genuine connection.
So maybe ditch the pressure of expensive gifts and fancy dinners and focus on simpler gestures that come from the heart.
Precisely. A handwritten note expressing your gratitude, spending quality time together without distractions. These acts can be so much more powerful.
It's about being present, being intentional, making your loved ones feel truly seen and appreciated.
Exactly. And remember, Valentine's Day doesn't have to be limited to romantic love. It's a great time to celebrate all those important relationships in your life.
I love that idea. Spreading the love to friends, family, even our furry companions. It's a great reminder that all relationships thrive on connection and appreciation.
That's a powerful message, isn't it? Love in all its diverse forms makes life more vibrant and meaningful.
Absolutely. Okay, so today we've journeyed from wild Roman festivals to the commodification of love in the modern world. It's been quite the ride.
It has. And I think it highlights something really important. Love has been this powerful force shaping human history. And it continues to shape our lives today.
I mean, it's it's mind-blowing to think that those ancient Romans running around, doing all that crazy stuff, were kind of celebrating, like, the early version of Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild journey when you think about it. And it just goes to show how powerful traditions are, how they can change and adapt to fit, well, different times and different beliefs. It makes you realize that even today, little pieces of those ancient rituals are still kind of woven into the fabric of how we celebrate love.
Yeah, it really does make you feel more connected to the past, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive here, what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners? What do you hope they'll remember about Valentine's Day?
Well, for me, it's just realizing that love in all its different forms is this incredibly powerful force, I mean, it's shaped human history in so many ways, and it still shapes our lives today. Whether it's the love between partners, the love between family and friends, or even the love for a cause or a belief, it's what connects us all.
That's really beautiful. So as our listeners go out and celebrate Valentine's Day this year, whether they're, going all out with the chocolates and flowers or just spending time with their loved ones, what's one final thought you want to leave them with?
I just hope they'll remember that Valentine's Day, at its heart, is about celebrating those connections, the ones that truly make life meaningful and rich. And maybe, just maybe, while they're out there celebrating, they can take a moment to think about the long, fascinating journey of this holiday and how those echoes of the past, well, they're still with us today in the ways we choose to express love.
It's a good reminder that even in our modern world, we're still connected to those traditions that have been around for centuries. Well, on that note, to all our listeners out there, happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
And remember, love's a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the ride.